Hey y'all, Lisa Davis here, the trusted banker, and I want to talk to you today about the economy. Let's talk about the economy and what's going on. I want to start right quick with this because I thought this was interesting. Um, this was put out today by Trump. The preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many. This is what Trump put out on truthsocial.com. He says preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many with energy costs way down. Food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down. There is virtually no inflation with these costs trending down so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do. There can be almost no inflation, but there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it came to the election period when he lowered in order to, and I don't know if I can see the full story because I'm not a member of Truth Social. Um, I just want to know whenever in this presidency is he going to stop talking about Biden? I swear. I've never, I just think about when you go, anything that you do, how often, like even any corporate job, how often in a corporate job, when I took on my position as the managing director for this corporation and I managed all 5 states, I never could go to the chair or the CEO or the board or all the committee meetings that I had and said, we're doing great, thank God, because of such and so that was here last year. Like for real, you can't keep bringing up your predecessor or the person that was before you. So come on, man. I mean, in all everything, it's getting to be old news. It's getting to be repetitive. It's getting to be Alzheimerish. It's getting to be old people stuff. Like, stop talking about the people that was here before you. You wanted the job. You wanted the job. You got the job. Talk about what you're doing and stop talking about everything that happened before you got there. And that's why, whatever. It's like whatever. So anything. So let's dig into this, right? So let's dig into this because I like to always kind of just give a whole overview. I like to give like a whole, let me make sure I can be heard, right? So I like to give a whole overview before I get to going. So let me remove that and just talk about the tariffs. 2025, Trump gets into office. We got a whole tariff war going on. And as usual, every time Trump gets into office, I learn more and more about the politicking of this country. So let's break down the tariffs again. Early January 2025, Trump gets into office, 145% tariff on Chinese imports and a 10% baseline tax on goods from almost everywhere else. What he's trying to do, what he says he wants to do, why he's doing this is because he wants to bring manufacturing back to America no matter what. And we're going to talk about that because there's some reporting out on that today, right? But what happened when he did this announcement in January, Apple stock nosedived, right? They lost $640 billion immediately overnight. Economists promised, economists said, economists warned that this could be the formula for death to our economy, right? You could cause people to have to buy iPhones $3,500 for a $1,000 iPhone. iPhones are already expensive enough. If we keep up with the tariff, they said this in January, iPhones could be $3,500. Let's keep going, right? March through April 2025, right? He says why he wants to carve out huge exemptions. Why? Because reality hit, right? Just last month, reality hit. Trump said, okay, after all the flip-flopping with Mexico, after all the flip-flopping with Canada, after all the flip-flopping with China, then he goes and he says, you know what? Let's give tech a free pass. Smartphones, laptops, chips, etc., they won't be tariffed. Because why? Because you can't rebuild Silicon Valley overnight. We can't rebuild all of the tech things that we need here in this country overnight. And he knows that that's going to cause Americans to have to spend way more money than they would have had to spend if he were to keep those tariffs on there, right? Medicine and books were also spared because a trade warrior knows you don't mess with people's pills, you don't mess with their pills or their school supplies. It's like he goes back and forth, flip-flopping Trump, right? One day it's no mercy. The next day it's like, okay, a little bit of mercy. Let's just not do it on these things, right? So then China went nuclear, right? China slapped 125% tariff on all US goods, and they started flooding TikTok. Now I'm big on TikTok. I done ordered a bunch of stuff. China said buy direct from China. They brought all of their designer merchandise, all of their merchandise that you can start your own type of stores here, like a dollar store, any kind of stores. China manufactures everything. They were like, listen, we don't have to, you don't have to buy these things from your stores over there. Buy direct from China. I bought 3 designer bags. When they get here, I'm going to come back on and show you what they were, what they are, because they manufacture everything in China, and we got things for really low cost. China is still on TikTok right now, selling direct to consumer. You can buy one thing, you could buy 1,000 things, you can buy 10,000 things, same price. Before the price of shipping gets up there, I would suggest you go on TikTok, or you go, they have DH Gate. You know what? I'll do another video that shows all the places where you can go get the China goods, right? Africa said, keep your money, keep your aid. After Trump cut $60 billion in funding, countries like Ethiopia, Somalia kicked the U.S. health programs out. And guess who stepped in? China and Europe. Then we have the Temu tax disaster, right? This is the most chaotic because shipping, DHL announced today. DHL is one of the logistics, shipping, and supply chain management, like US UPS and FedEx. DHL announced today that they're going to stop, they're going to halt, they're going to delay shipping on any orders for Americans from overseas that are over $800 until they can figure out what the cost is going to be, right? Before Trump made his announcement, we would figure out costs on $2,500 imports or more. Now it's down to $800 worth of imports. So people buying up to $800 worth of things are okay. But if you bought over $800 worth of things, they got to figure out what is that cost to bring it over here. These are online orders. This is going to hurt small businesses. This is going to hurt small businesses, right? So now where are we with this self-inflicted trade crisis and what's going on? It's going to possibly cost Americans at least $1,200 extra per year. America is losing clout while we're busy slapping taxes on this and that and taking them off of this and that. China and Europe are swooping in and cutting deals with our old allies, and they are now building those bonds in order to make those dollars with those and investments with those companies and countries that we're no longer working with, and businesses are stuck in limbo. One day the tariffs are on, one day the tariffs are off. Nobody can plan ahead, and that creates consumer chaos that lowers consumer confidence. But that also makes us just look bad globally, right? And so what we're supposed to be doing is trying to make America look stronger, and instead, America's been looking chaotic. So I want to talk about how the lowering of the rates that Trump is demanding Powell to do, because that's where all this is going. Now Trump wants Powell to lower the rates. He's yelling at Powell. He's a too late Powell or slow moving Powell or whatever. You know, Trump loves to give you a nickname when you don't do what he wants you to do. So while he's raising the tariffs, he wants Powell to lower the interest rates. I don't know if people remember, but this happened during COVID. He had Jerome Powell. He was in office at that time too with the Fed. I think he was at the Fed. The Fed lowered the rates when Trump was in office before. And for some reason, Trump has amnesia when it comes to understanding that all of the inflation we suffered after 2019 was due to the fact that he lowered the interest rates to historical lows, basically to zero before, basically to zero. Money was flowing freely. People were taking out mortgages. People were buying houses. Small business loans were going because money was cheap. People were getting credit cards. People were borrowing. All of this spending makes inflation hit and go up. I don't understand why we don't learn from history. We have to manage our supply chain. We have to manage the amount consumers can consume, right? And that comes with inflation, because as consumers are purchasing and buying, and that was the big problem. There was so much cash available, right, during COVID because of the lowering of the interest rates, because of the CARE Acts. It was the plan that Trump put out with the tax plan and the monies and unemployment. A lot of people were unemployed, but unemployment benefits doubled, right? So people were making money hand over foot, hand over fist, and interest rates were low, so money was cheap, right? And so people were spending, spending, spending. When you spend and spend and spend, and you notice that manufacturers can't keep up with the demand, inflation hits and makes prices go up to slow spending. At the same time, after the crisis of the pandemic, after the crisis of COVID, right, and stuff started to stabilize a little bit, the Fed kept increasing rates slowly to slow down the spend. And people were like, why do we have to, why is the rates going up? Why is inflation going up? Why are we best day ever? I'm exhausted too. I'm exhausted too if I'm talking about Biden and everybody else, anybody that don't agree with him. But it's like he doesn't remember what happened in the past. And I really want people to get this. And I'm pretty sure the people I'm talking to are the MAGA idiots that are not going to listen. But it's like history repeats itself. If he cuts rates now, right? If he raises the tariffs to make imports more expensive, to make to this tariff war in order to bring manufacturing back, that won't even happen till 2035, 2040, right? By the time they make all these plants. If he wants to lower the rate so money becomes more plentiful, that's going to cause inflation again. We have to learn from the past, regardless of the fact that I don't know if people understand Americans are more in debt now than ever before in the history of this country. I had the article pulled up. Of course, I don't know if I can find it, but I can pull it back up. Consumers are, I think it's 18 trillion right now. Consumers have more debt right now because it happened during the time where interest rates were low, meaning money was plentiful and money was cheap. People were bringing in a lot of money from the monies that were coming in from the pandemic, unemployment, and whatever else. And people were spending. Credit cards were going out like crazy. Automobiles were being sold like crazy. Remember all of a sudden when automobile prices spiked? Right? They said the demand was too high for the supply, and the supply had went down because of COVID. So automobile prices spiked high, and then they came back down. All of this is due to lowering of the interest rates and having money very plentiful for people to spend. I keep thinking back to what Canada said when they said that the tariffs that they impose are very low unless Americans go over the limit that they had, the benchmark that they had placed, because they try to protect their farmers and their industry and their dairy industry in order to say, this is how much you can buy from us at low cost. If you go over this benchmark, we are going to increase the cost 200%. That might not be the number, but I'm just saying, because they protect the amount of supply that Americans consume in order to protect the farmers so that they're not over stressing their industry. So that means there's only so much. What that means is there's only so much that can be consumed, right? There's only so much that can be consumed, and Americans got to stop being greedy. Bottom line, Americans got to stop being greedy. But so it says right now in 2025, Americans are, and I'm not sharing this with you. Let me see. I got to go to, I can say, it says Americans are, I had pulled this up on debt.org, I think it was. We're at a record high debt. $18 trillion by the fourth quarter of 2024, with credit card balances increasing by $45 billion to $1.2 trillion. This is the highest amount of debt that American homes have ever carried in this country. People are in debt. People are in debt. They're not going to be able to afford all this debt, especially if the economy slows down. All these people have now lost their jobs, and the domino effect. People lose their jobs, people stop spending. When people stop spending, other small businesses go out of business. When those businesses go out of business, we're going to have a crisis, right? So Trump's tariffs won't lead to supply chain. So this is So this was put out last week where it says, and this is CNBC, Trump's tariffs won't lead supply chains back to the U.S. Companies will go low tariff, globe hopping, 100%, right? Right now, countries are looking for other countries to work with because of what we got going on, because we're charging so much. says most companies that respond to new supply chain survey said costs are the biggest headwind in moving manufacturing back to the US. And if they do so, they would favor automation over workers. So if this does bring manufacturing back to the United States, which is not, if this brings manufacturing back to the United States, they're going to automate the warehouses. They're going to automate the manufacturing. Makes sense because Americans don't work for cheap. We are not cheap labor, right? We are not cheap labor. It says nearly half reshoring would more than double the cost, and a majority indicated that President Donald Trump's trade war is likely to kick off a global search for low tariff regimes. That means all these countries that he's double tariffing are going to go find other places to go buy their goods and services from, meaning they won't never come back to America. A majority of respondents that took a survey about supply chain management said that in the near term, price hikes are coming and consumer demand will decline. Recession is the base case for 63% of the respondents. So if China is going to lose some manufacturing as a result of President Donald Trump's tariffs, the U.S. manufacturing sector won't be the main beneficiary, according to this survey that CNBC put out for the supply chain. Right? Trump's administration says reshoring boom is coming, but most companies that responded to the survey told CNBC that bringing back supply chains could as much as double their costs, and that instead a search for low tariff regimes around the world will commence. So over half of those surveys said cost is the biggest headwind in relocating supply chains to the U.S. We have never been the cheapest place to manufacture things. People have never sought out the United States of America because we were cheap labor and they really wanted to build their plants here. Absolutely not. Matter of fact, we're so expensive that our companies took their plants overseas. That's number one, right? So I don't see how this is going to be beneficial. But let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. This one was kind of shocking to me today. Amazon has paused some data center lease commitments. This is a sure sign when Amazon, one of the biggest companies, is slowing down, right? Analysts at Wells Fargo wrote in a report today on Monday that they heard over the weekend about Amazon pausing lease conversations with co-location partners. Earlier this month, Amazon CEO said he did not see the company pulling back on construction data, but today Amazon has delayed some of its commitments around new data center leases. Wells Fargo analyst said Monday, the latest sign that economic concerns may be affecting tech companies and spending plans. And a week ago, Microsoft executives said the software company was slowing down or temporarily holding off on advancing early build-outs. This is the two big tech giants here, right? Amazon Web Services and Microsoft are leading providers of cloud infrastructure and have both ramped up their capital expenditures in recent quarters to meet demands of the generative artificial intelligence boom. But over the weekend, we heard from several industry sources that Amazon has paused a portion of its leasing discussions, and they added that Microsoft is also reeling back, right? Tesla stocks, right? So we don't even need to talk about Tesla stocks. That's a concern because as tech diminishes, while Trump is saying that he wants to get manufacturing here, and one of the big things that he wants to manufacture are chips for tech. I don't know. Trump's plan, this one, this came out, what was the date on this one? Trump shrugs off, the GOP shrugs off. So, this one, Trump wanted to get rid of a Biden era, the Chips and Science Act. So if you remember when I'm always talking, I talk about how Project 2025 and Trump's agenda is to rescind everything that Biden put in place. Well, in March, Trump told the lawmakers to rescind or get rid of Biden's Chips and Science Act. The Chips and Science Act is a $52.7 billion law that will be both politically and legally complicated to unwind. And so the GOP, they didn't say they would do it. They didn't say they wouldn't do it. They just ignored the president. I think that's a good sign. I've seen several signs where the GOP has pushed back on some of the things that Trump wants them to do, right? I think that's a good sign. I think we need to see more of that. Trump trips Trump's chip strategy. The US will struggle to take on Asia. We know this, right? So the US has dropped the ball on chip manufacturing over the years, allowing China and other Asian hubs to steam ahead, right? So for 4 years, chip remained a battleground in the US-China race for tech supremacy. And US Donald Trump now wants to turbocharge he wants to turbocharge a highly complex and delicate manufacturing process that has taken other regions decades to perfect. He says his tariff policy will liberate the US economy and bring jobs home. I don't think so, and neither do other people, because the microchips, the secret sauce, semiconductors are essential to powering everything from washing machines to iPhones to military jets and electric vehicles. Making them is expensive and technologically complex, right? Trump has praised the chip industry, but also threatened it with tariffs. He has told industry leaders it would have to pay a tax of 100% if it did not build its factories in the US. And with such a complex ecosystem and fierce competition, they need to be able to plan for higher costs and investments called in long term, well beyond Trump's administration. The constant changes to policies aren't helping the policies that the Trump administration is doing right now. People don't have confidence right now in America. Countries don't have confidence in America. It was largely the thinking behind the US Chips and Science Act, which become law under President Biden, an effort to reshore manufacture of chips and diversify supply chains by allocating grants, tax credits, and subsidies to incentivize domestic manufacturing. So, we've got two separate ways of managing countries' investments into the United States of America. Trump's the bully way with tariffing and making people feel like they can't, making everything so expensive and losing money and saying, if you don't work with us, we're going to continue to charge you, make everything so expensive where, we won't be needing your products or whatever, versus the other way under 2022, Joe Biden, he was going to allocate grants, tax credits, and subsidies to incentivize domestic manufacturing. Some companies, like the world's largest chip maker, TSMC, and the world's largest smartphone maker, Samsung, have become major beneficiaries of the legislation that Joe Biden put into place, right? Getting grants, getting $6.6 billion in grants for loans to build plants in Arizona. So we did start manufacturing plants under the Biden administration to manufacture chips. Trump's administration wants to take that further and have them expand. The problem is that both TSMC and Samsung have faced challenges with their investments, including surging costs, difficulty recruiting skilled labor, construction delays, and resistance from local unions. This isn't just a factory where you make boxes. The factories that make chips are such high-tech, sterile environments. These factories take years and years to build. And despite the US investment, TSMC has said that most of its manufacturing will remain in Taiwan, especially its most advanced computer chips. The question of scale depends on how much investment is made in the US versus Taiwan. The reality is it took decades for Taiwan to build up that capacity. And despite the threats of China spending billions to steal Taiwan's prowess in the industry, it continues to thrive. The other thing is, could the US make chips and create jobs? Yeah, they could, but are the chips going to get down to the nanometer? Probably not. One reason is Trump's immigration policy, which can potentially limit the arrival of skilled talent from China and India. Even Elon Musk has an immigration problem with Tesla engineers. That's the bottleneck, and there's nothing you can do unless they change their stance on immigration entirely. The thing is that it was saying, where was it saying? It said that some companies look for new markets. Chinese technology giant expanded into Europe and emerging markets. If they build better chips, everyone is going to go to them. Cost effectiveness is something they can do now, and looking forward to the nope. It said something about our knowledge base was not smart enough. It said our knowledge base, the sheer to build how they build, right? I think the Trump administration is trying to do what it has done with the TikTok owner ByteDance. He is saying, I'm not going to let you operate in the US anymore unless you give Oracle or another US company a stake. I think they're trying to fandangle something similar here. TSMC isn't going anywhere. Let's just force them to deal with Intel and take a slice of the pie, right? Let me go to the one where I saw that it had something also to do with these companies don't trust Americans to build as they build because of the technology, the education, and the talent that we have here. Where was that? Chips and science. Right. The official document which calls for public comments. So this is another thing that this administration is doing, and I found this to be a little bit shady, and I'm gonna show you why. But the United States announced that they're gonna probe into chip electronics imports, paving the way for new tariffs. They're doing right now what they call an open comment section. They're gonna they have the probe encompasses a wide range of items, including chips, document. The U.S. Commerce Department is conducting a national security investigation into imports of semiconductor technology and related downstream products, according to the Federal Register notice. The official document, which calls for public comments on the investigation, is going to investigate whether it's going to basically be affordable for us, the United States, to manufacture chips here. And it's also going into question, is there a security issue? Is there a security concern? Should Americans be worried about if the chips are made overseas or outside of the US? Will we have problems with foreign nationals or foreign security or homeland security, right? Is the feasibility of increasing domestic semiconductors capacity. The investigation is going to include chip components. There's many different styles and sizes of these chips, and I know this is getting into the weeds, and it doesn't really matter. But it baffles me how this administration thinks about things, and then they do something like this, which somebody like me that has watched regulatory different regulations come and go, different regulations get amended or expanded, or different things go into law. And I know the process. And when I looked at what they were doing at the Federal Register, I don't know if you guys can see this. I was like, this is not, they're not. So they block stuff. I'm gonna try to explain this to you. So let me show you. So they put out a request for public comment. This is the normal procedure, right? The Department of Commerce, Bureau of Industry and Security has a notice of request for public comments on Section 232, National Security Investigation of Imports of Semiconductors and Semiconductor Manufacturing Equipment. This is a time where the public can go in and provide their intellect, their public comments, and the secretary wants to know, they want to address the concerns like let me look at the document. Is this still on here? Yeah. So the document is here. So they're asking an investigation to determine the effects on national security of imports of semiconductors. If you remember, just like China said, the United States is taking the same stance they took on TikTok as far as national security. And so the question that they have posed on the Federal Register is, what are the effects on national security of imports of semiconductors and semiconductor manufacturing equipment and their derivative products? They want to investigate this under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 as amended. Interested parties are invited to submit written comments, data analysis, and other information pertinent to the Department of Commerce's question, right? They want to look and see, does this pose a threat to national security if we allow and continue to buy semiconductors and semiconductor equipment from from overseas, right? So the problem that I have with this is at the Federal Register, this is a public document. And here it says 7 comments were received. You're supposed to be able to see everything on. Can you guys see this still? So let me take this off. You're supposed to be, it's a public document. It's basically like a public conversation. You should be able to see what the government is doing, asked and answered, and what the public is saying. Here, the comments are grayed out. Comments are never grayed out. The comment section ends May 7, 2025. To me, this is shady. I have never seen a public open for comments. You're invited. You can submit comments. This is through regulation.gov. This is how all regulations are determined. They take public comments for like a 30 to 60 day period, and it's all public. This is the first time I've seen that you can't read the public comments. Only thing you can do is submit a comment. So what this says to me, because see, the purpose of sometimes reading the public comments is to see what industry experts have submitted comments, what corporations have submitted comments, what nonprofits, what advocacy agents, even the general public, what comments have been submitted, where are people, what are people thinking, what are they talking about, and what does this really look like? Because the question is very vague. The question is vague. It's very short-lived. There's not a lot about it. They just want to know, is this going to be a threat to national security? With the comments being grayed out, I feel like they're going to come back and say, yes, it's going to be a threat to national security. Therefore, we're not going to be able. No, let me not give my thoughts on this. Let's see where it goes. Public comment session is over May 7th. I will show you another example of how public comments normally look. I can just show any of them. Here's one right here for public comment, for just to give you an example, just to show you how it normally looks, right? This is open for public comment. It's open until May 21st. It was open on February 20th. This is a request for public comments regarding technology platform censorship, right? There have been 2,000 comments, and do you see how you see the comments? This is the first comment from Christine. They're talking about technology and social media or something like that. She says she's so sick of Facebook fact checking. That's her comment, right? The public can comment on these things. When federal trade puts out what the question is and what the government is seeking public input from, you can go to regulation.gov and you can see public input from all kind of people. Thomas said, Reddit is banning me from commenting or posting because I'm a member of a Trump and conservative subreddit. That's 100% of the definition of fascism. Now, let me say this about public comment. Typically, I have made public comment through my nonprofit because we're an advocacy group for affordable housing. We're also an advocacy group for fair lending. And so when I make public comment, it's typically a very well thought out public comment document with many other key stakeholders and centers of influence signed on to it with my board approval, right, to submit a public comment. They're not typically done like this, so this is a little bit of a downgrade of how public comment normally looks. I wanted to see if I can show you what a really good one. This is not a good one either. Banned by SafeBot years ago, made a new account and blocked the abomination, but the use of such a bot violates Reddit's own. Okay, so basically these are people complaining about social media. I'm not gonna get into that, but I just wanted to give you an example of what public comment means. So I'm gonna keep watching this too. It's just interesting to me how the Secretary of Commerce opened up for public comment, but public comment is grayed out, and the public comment time ends May 21st, which means they may have gave it a 30 to 45 day time frame of public notice or public to be involved without really making a big announcement of it. I'm just concerned about that to see what's going to happen with this. So anyways, Trump, I try not to be too. So anyways, so yeah, consumers are in debt. 18 trillion. Trump's tariff wars are not doing what he says they're doing. The cost of eggs, I've got that. If you guys care to see, the cost of eggs have gone up. The cost of gas in my city is low, but gas was low before. But a lot of things are very expensive still. So we're going to keep watching it. I think we're going to go into a recession. I think we need to learn that we need to be cash heavy. I think we need to learn that if we've got anything invested, if you haven't taken it out, don't take it out now. If you've got a 401k, if you've got stocks, if you've got bonds, if you've got investments and things like that, and you haven't taken it out, leave it, let it sit. It might be a few years before it gets back to where it needs to be, but you don't want to take it out when it's down. But you want to make sure that you have cash available. Because it's pretty likely that we are going to go into some type of a recession if Trump doesn't start to well, as long as Powell is in place, we probably won't, because he's not going to listen. He's not going to be bullied by Trump. He's not going to be bullied by Trump, right? He's just not. Oh, so now Trump is warning of an economic slowdown unless Powell is not going to be bullied into lowering rates because Trump wants him to. The concern we have to watch for now is they're trying to figure out if they can fire Powell. I don't think that they can. I think his time is over next year, which is a good thing. So Powell's going to do what he knows he needs to do. He's not going to probably lower rates. He's going to hold strong, and that's just going to be that. And Trump's just going to have to pout and sulk. We're going to see what kind of retaliatory advances Trump makes because he's not getting his way. You know, when he doesn't get his way, he tries to do other things that says, you know, Trump has stated he would like to see the rates gone since stock market lower. We can't manage your mistakes, Trump, by lowering interest rates every single time. We managed the pandemic because you didn't take it seriously. We managed the pandemic by lowering rates. We're not going to do it this time because you want to make tariffs high. It's just the bottom line. If you want to see people do business with America, if you want to bring businesses back, if you want to make sure small businesses don't go out of business because they can't afford to get supply, get over the tariff war thing. It's not helping. It doesn't work. It's never worked. History shows you it doesn't work. You can't manage by tariff. And now that so many, we're literally in this country. I don't know if any of you have ever lived abroad. I have lived abroad. I have lived in Costa Rica. If you look at technology and you look at where other countries are, we are so far behind. So it doesn't make sense that other countries will turn to us and say, oh my God, we'll do whatever you want us to do. Please, please, please let us do business with you because America is so great. No, while America was over here arguing and doing all the things we've been doing for the last 12 to 16 years, other countries' technology and education and economies and recycling and just environmental and all the things have been skyrocketing. Meanwhile, we're over here arguing about whether we want to advance in everything or we want to take everything back to 1920. I don't see that the tariff war is going to produce for him what he thinks it's going to produce for him, but we'll keep watching that. And I will put up a video about how China came in and said, if the tariffs stay high, you guys can buy direct, so that you guys can know all the different websites to go to and all those things. So I'll put that up next. My name is Lisa Davis. I am the Trusted Banker, and it's good to see y'all, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.